Hi, this is Dawn from GoingBeyondCoping.com, and this is my series, Coping Through Introspection A Journey into You. This is part 3 of the series. If you haven't seen the other 2, you probably should, because this might not make as much sense if you don't. You can find them on the YouTube page or on my website at GoingBeyondCoping.com. In part 3, we're talking about attempting to affect change in the things that affect your modes. So we already know that we have low symptom mode, low or no symptom mode, where we are feeling great and not really bothered too much by our symptoms at the current moment. And then we have combat symptom mode, which is our warrior mode, which is where we're battling something. Something big, something small, doesn't matter. It's affecting us in one way or another, if mentally, physically, etc. And then we have succumb to symptoms mode, which is our sloth or sleep mode, where we can't get out of our chair or our bed, or we're sleeping. Having narcolepsy, that's mine a lot of the time, is the sleeping thing. So hopefully you started noticing when you're changing modes, the kind of things that thrust you from one mode to another, either up or down. Hopefully you're taking the time for your own self to chart your modes, or at the very least try and get an idea of how many hours a day you have in each mode, and then maybe write that on the calendar if you can. I think one thing that helped me is overwriting yesterday. Like, I don't think about how much I hurt yesterday or over the weekend. I'm currently in a TMJ myofascial pain syndrome flare that's got me all jacked up from here and all the way up through here. And I've been dealing with it I'm going into my 6th month dealing with it, and it's stress related, and I've been working on it, but cortisol is cortisol, and my body doesn't care. So I don't want to remember that I've had this problem for 6 months. So I don't think about it. I don't dwell on it, because what's the point? It's not going to benefit me. So charting is especially important for me, because while I'm forgetting the bad times, I'm also forgetting the good times, because I'm trying to live in the moment. That's what they say, live in the moment, right? So I'm living in my right now. I'm not thinking about what I dealt with yesterday, because I'm in today. And unless something that happened yesterday can help me with today, I don't need to be dwelling on it. So charting was my point, that you can see, one thing I did do actually, many years ago, I did a gratitude challenge where you were supposed to write down 100 things that you were grateful for. And I did it for 30 days. I wrote 100 things that I was grateful for 30 days. And in the beginning, it's easy, family, friends, job, car. By the time you get into the 70s, you're like grateful for baby wipes and coffee creamer that doesn't have artificial ingredients in it or whatever. You really got to dig to find things to be grateful for at that point. And you're adding flowers and birds and babies. And eventually, after the 30 days, I noticed a lot more things that I was grateful for on a regular basis. One, because for 30 days I was looking for things to add to my list. I wanted to try and keep it, relatively unique each day, or at least several things unique anyway. So, it makes a difference to look for good things rather than the bad things. Okay, so what happens? I'm going to talk specifically about people who have narcolepsy, because the triggering event is a chemical response within us, and it's a little bit different for us. But this also goes for moods and emotions, and regardless of what chronic illness you have, you may see a lot of similarity in this to what you're experiencing in your own life. So we have stimulus, something happens, and then we have a trigger caused by that stimulus, and then the response is bad. This would be like a balloon popping, and that's your trigger. You're just down. That's bad. You don't want to be down in public. It's not a good thing. Okay, so we want to know, can we alter the trigger? Now, balloon popping is kind of a difficult one, but you could avoid the trigger if you just stayed away from balloons. I mean, if you're out in public, it's probably not as easy because you can't control when balloons will be around you, but that's an extreme case. Let's take your boss yelling at you. Okay. So your boss yells at you and you're triggered by it. You have a response where you're tired or hurting more, you get a headache, you feel crappy, your mood changes, whatever. So can we do something about that, right? I actually had a boss that used to make me cry, which would result in me needing to go nap. And what he was saying to me wasn't wrong. And the way he was saying it probably wasn't wrong to someone who isn't as sensitive as I am, but I'm sensitive. So in that instance, I analyze, why am I having such a response to this person telling me these things? And of course, it's an employee-employer relationship. So you automatically have that dichotomy going on for you. So for me, what helped me was separating that out. Like, I didn't think about the fact that he was my boss. I thought about the fact that he's a business owner who has a situation that he needs handled, and I either handled it incorrectly, didn't handle it at all, or it still needs to be handled. So sticking to the facts for me, sticking to what happened, how do we fix it if it can be fixed, and how do we prevent it from happening in the future? And focusing on those things instead of feeling the feelings that I'm having from this person coming to me made a difference. And if, like, I've been doing this for a long time, in the beginning, it won't go great. Like, the first time you try it, you might only feel half sick to your stomach, but you'll notice a small difference if you're able to pull yourself out of the personal relationship between you and the person that you're having a conversation with. As an example, say it really bothers you when people suggest that you change your diet. It did me for about 40 years. It's going to be different coming from a lady on the bus than it is someone who suffers from your condition, who had a certain experience changing their diet. You're going to listen differently. You're going to hear it differently. You're going to take out what the person is trying to say and listen to it without the cloud of the stranger judging you or the family member sticking their nose in where it doesn't belong, or what have you. So then what we end up doing is we have the stimulus. We analyze the stimulus while it's happening, and then our response is either neutral or good. It's called conditioning. You're conditioning yourself to cope with your physical responses. So in the case of my boss, I'm able to have a neutral response to him coming to me with a problem. I'm able to take away all the emotions, have a neutral response, and have a professional, what I do next is all related to my job and how I know how to do it, and it has nothing to do with who I am or what's wrong with me or any of that stuff. It's all just the situation. And dealing with just the situation will help you stop listening to all the noise that's around the situation. So some of the things that can trigger a response that's not good. Stress. Stress is probably the number one thing. There's a lot of information on the internet about coping with stress, and I highly recommend that you seek it out. Read as many things as you can, watch as many videos as you can stay awake for. Get that help that's out there from people who manage stress, because it's out there. and you can teach yourself how to manage stress. I'm having this huge stress response, but I personally don't feel stressed. It's all a chemical thing that's happening inside of my body. I meditate every day, I'm happy, I'm positive, I'm doing what I need to do with my diet and exercise and socializing. And so I know there's nothing I can do about this right now. I just have to wait until this external stimulus that I'm dealing with, that's not mine, but it affects me, is over. And then hopefully my cortisol levels will drop and the pain will fade back into where it was before it came. Hunger can affect you as well. Snickers even made a commercial about it. When you're hungry, you're not a very happy person usually. Excitement, anger, being rushed. Oh God, when someone rushes me, I forget everything. I need to have, this is something that I actually noticed in myself that I was able to have a workaround. If I rush out of the house, I forget my phone or my keys or my hat or my sunglasses or my whatever. If I take my time getting ready and there's no one around me going, hurry up, then I remember everything. So in the morning, if people are rushing me, I try really hard to ignore that. And I'll talk to my husband if when are we gonna go? When are we gonna go? When are we gonna go? And I'll tell him literally, don't do that. I'll tell you, let's check in with each other in 15 minutes or whatever, so that for that 15 minutes, I know I'm not going to get that trigger. Because the second he says, when are we going to go? That's when I'm going to be like, oh God, I got to get out of here. And that's when I'm starting to forget things. Okay, fear can trigger a response. I'm going to do a whole series just like this one on giving up my fear of death. I have lucid dreams now, but for decades I was tortured by my dreams and my hallucinations that come from having narcolepsy, both hypnagogic visual hallucinations and hypnopompic smell hallucinations. Hearing, it seems very real at the time, and coping through that took a long time, so I'm going to do a whole series on that one. Frustration, when you're frustrated, when you want to do something and you're tired, your frustration comes up and it makes it even more unlikely that you'll be able to do that thing. So if you can stop that frustration, okay, I need to do laundry, but I'm really super tired. Maybe I'm going to make a compromise with myself. Maybe I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to try really hard to just relax for 10 minutes. And then when the alarm goes off, I'm going to let the adrenaline of the alarm going off thrust me off the couch and off to do the laundry. And it might not work. It might work. You might end up needing a nap afterwards. So that's why knowing yourself is such an important thing. What works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for me. So in chronic illness, treating yourself through doing these things, through figuring yourself out, will go a long way toward helping you cope with your chronic conditions. Monotony in meetings. Oh, everyone hates meetings, but people with chronic illness hate them even more. Perhaps we can do a post about meetings and tips, poking yourself to stay awake, or whatever it is that you can do. I'll see if I can get some input from people and maybe do either a video about that or a post on my blog. And keep in mind all these stimulus: stress, hunger, excitement, anger, being rushed, fear, frustration, monotony, meetings. They're different at work than they are at home. They're different with strangers than they are with friends. They're different with friends than they are with family. And they're different with family than they are with coworkers. Knowing yourself is so important. Something someone else says will have a different effect on you based on whose mouth it's coming out of and what you believe the intentions of the person saying them are. So getting ready for the last video are really primarily just going to be examples, my own life examples of how I analyzed things within my life and was able to affect change in the way that my symptoms affect me. But what you can do is spend some time thinking about what triggers your responses and that are bad, and what triggers your responses that are good. And you want to see if you can affect change in that. maybe something that triggers you in combat mode that doesn't trigger you in low symptom mode can be explored more when you're in low symptom mode. And just as a quick example, irrational situations is one of my cataplexy triggers. So I challenge myself to learn to cope with irrational situations by reading the comments section on public posts on Facebook. Topic doesn't matter. Just scrolling through and seeing the extreme degrees of difference between the way that people think, one is for, one is opposed, and you read it over and over and over again. And while I'm reading it, I'm able to take the emotion out of it and think, oh, why do they think that? Or, oh, I can see why they think that. Or, just agree or disagree is irrelevant. It's all practicing coping with your physical response to the emotional stimulus you're experiencing. And it's better to practice on strangers than it is on your family and friends. But yeah, I'll talk about my family and friends in the next video of examples and ways that I've made change for that. So feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. You can learn more about me, read my writing, etc. at goingbeyondcoping.com. And you can join me on Facebook in the Positively Narcolepsy group. I also have a community page where I share things that I think are fun, funny, or uplifting for people with narcolepsy. That's it. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you for part 4.